Sarah's words cut through me like ice as she stood in my kitchen, her wedding shoes clicking on the floor I had cleaned every morning for 6 months. The greatest gift for our wedding would be if you disappeared from our family, she said, not even looking up from her phone. My son Danny just shrugged and kept eating the breakfast I had made him. If you're watching this, please hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're from. I need to know you're listening to understand how I got to this moment. 3 months ago, I had moved in with Danny and Sarah after my apartment building was sold. They said it would be temporary just until I found a new place. They promised I would always be welcome in their home. Now, one day before their big wedding that I had been planning and preparing for weeks, Sarah decided I was just taking up space. You heard what she said, Mom. Danny finally spoke up, still not looking at me. Tomorrow is about us starting fresh. Your constant hovering is making everything feel heavy. My constant hovering? I had spent every day this week making their favorite meals, washing their clothes, and decorating their house with flowers from my own garden. The only thing I had done wrong was ask if they wanted me to sit with family or friends at the wedding. Where exactly do you think I should go? I asked quietly. Sarah finally looked up from her phone and rolled her eyes. I don't know. Maybe your sister's place? Or that senior center downtown. Honestly, Ruth, I don't really care where you end up as long as you're not here tomorrow morning when I'm getting ready. This house had been my son's dream since he was little. I had helped him save for years, giving him money from my part-time job at the library. This is Danny's house too, I reminded her gently. Actually, Danny cleared his throat. Sarah has been handling all the paperwork and bills since we moved in together. She's really the one who made this place work. The thousands of dollars I had given him over the years suddenly meant nothing. I stood there looking at the kitchen table where I had taught Danny to do homework, at the walls I had helped him paint last spring. These two had taken everything I had given them and somehow convinced themselves I owed them even more. That's when something changed inside me. Not anger exactly, but a kind of cold understanding. Like when you finally see a puzzle piece that was right in front of you the whole time. You know what? You're absolutely right, I said calmly. I should disappear. Sarah looked surprised. She probably thought I would cry or beg them to let me stay, giving her more drama to tell her friends about later. I'll pack my things and be gone in 2 hours. Danny actually looked relieved. That's probably best, Mom. We can all talk after the honeymoon when things calm down. Talk after the honeymoon. Like this was just a small fight about doing dishes. I went upstairs to the spare room where I had been staying. Not my room, because Sarah always reminded me it was temporary. Always the spare room, because guests don't get to stay forever. As I folded my clothes into my old suitcase, I could hear them downstairs already making plans for the space. Sarah wanted to turn it into a craft room. Danny thought it would be nice to have a home office. Neither of them seemed to feel bad about throwing out the woman who had helped raise one of them and welcomed the other into our family. I stopped at the picture of my late husband Tom on the nightstand. 45 years together, and he had never once made me feel unwanted in my own home. Don't worry, honey, I whispered to his picture. I'm not going down without teaching them something important, but first I needed to make some phone calls. Sitting in my car outside their house, I pulled out my cell phone and called my friend Janet, who worked at the community center where the wedding reception was planned. Ruth, what's wrong? You sound upset, Janet said when she heard my voice. Janet, I need you to help me with something. You know how I've been volunteering to set up the whole reception tomorrow? There was a pause. Of course, you've been working so hard on it. All the decorations, the food planning, coordinating with the caterers. What's happening? I told her everything. Sarah's cruel words, Danny's agreement, how they treated me like I was just a burden they needed to get rid of. Janet listened quietly, but I could hear her getting upset. Ruth, that's terrible. After everything you've done for them. Janet, here's what I need you to know. I was the one who booked the community center. I was the one who put down the deposit. And I was the one who arranged for all the food and decorations. Another pause, longer this time. Ruth, are you thinking what I think you're thinking? My heart was beating fast, but I felt more clear-headed than I had in months. Janet, What would happen if the person who booked everything decided to cancel? Well, technically, since your name is on all the paperwork and you put down the deposit, you have every right to cancel. But Ruth, there are 150 people planning to come tomorrow. I looked through their kitchen window and saw Sarah trying on her veil again, taking pictures of herself, completely happy now that she had gotten rid of me. Janet, those 150 people are about to learn what happens when you treat people badly. Can you help me cancel everything? Oh, honey, I've been watching how they treat you for months. I'll make the calls right now. I nearly dropped the phone. Are you serious? Dead serious. That girl has been rude to everyone at the center, acting like we're her servants. And your son just stands there and lets it happen. Through the window, I watched Sarah showing off her dress to someone on video chat, probably her sister. She was laughing and spinning around, so happy that she had solved her problem by getting rid of me. Janet, can you also cancel the flowers I ordered? And the cake? The flowers from Peterson's shop? And the cake from Miller's bakery? Ruth, you paid for all of that yourself. Every penny, I confirmed. They never even asked how much it cost. They just assumed someone else would handle it. Janet was quiet for a moment. Ruth, if I cancel everything now, what are they going to do for tomorrow? I watched Danny come into the kitchen and give Sarah a big hug, probably thanking her for finally getting his annoying mother out of their lives. Janet, they told me the greatest gift I could give them was to disappear. I'm just making sure they get exactly what they asked for. After hanging up with Janet, I sat in the growing darkness outside the house, where I was no longer welcome. They had no idea that in less than 12 hours, their perfect wedding day was going to fall apart. But I wasn't done yet. I had one more call to make. Hello, Peterson's Flower Shop. This is Marie speaking. Hi, Marie. This is Ruth Johnson. I need to make a change to the wedding order for tomorrow. Oh, hi, Ruth, the Johnson Parker wedding. Those arrangements are beautiful. We'll have everything ready for pickup in the morning. That's actually why I'm calling. I need to cancel the entire order. Cancel? But the wedding is tomorrow. Ruth, we've already prepared everything. The bridal bouquet, the centerpieces, all the boutonnieres. I understand, and I'm sorry for the short notice. But since I'm the one who ordered and paid for everything, I believe I can make changes. Papers rustling. Well, yes, the order is under your name and paid with your credit card. But shouldn't you talk to the bride and groom first? No need, Marie. I'm making a decision based on new information I received today. What kind of new information? I looked at Sarah through the window, now taking more pictures of herself, completely unaware that her perfect day was disappearing piece by piece. The kind that makes you realize some people don't deserve beautiful things. 20 minutes later, I was checked into the Comfort in downtown, ordering a sandwich from room service and feeling something I hadn't felt in years. The power that comes from finally standing up for yourself. My phone started ringing at 10:30 p.m. What did you do? Sarah's voice was so high and angry I could barely understand her. I gave you exactly what you asked for, I said calmly, turning down the TV in my hotel room. You wanted me to disappear, so I disappeared. The community center called. They said you canceled our reception. Our wedding reception, Ruth. I'm sure that's disappointing. But you made it very clear that my involvement in your lives wasn't wanted anymore. Danny grabbed the phone away from her. Mom, this is crazy. You can't just cancel our whole wedding because you're mad about sleeping in the spare room. I didn't cancel your wedding, sweetie. You can still get married tomorrow at the church. I just canceled the reception that I was paying for and organizing. Silence. For 3 months, I had never mentioned money. I had quietly paid for things and organized everything while they took credit and made demands. Paying for. Sarah's voice was much quieter now. The community center, the food, the decorations, the flowers. Did you think it was all free? Did you think some fairy godmother was making your dreams come true? But we can't have 150 people show up with nowhere to go for dinner. You're both smart people. I'm sure you'll figure something out. Maybe the pizza place delivers to the church parking lot. Sarah started crying then. Real tears, not the fake ones she used when she wanted something. How could you do this to us? We trusted you. Trusted me to do what? pay for your party while you treated me like garbage. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I was just stressed about the wedding. Sarah, you didn't hurt my feelings. You showed me exactly what kind of person you are. And I'm simply responding to that information. Danny tried to take control of the conversation. Mom, please. We can work this out like adults. Come back to the house, and let's talk. The house where I'm not welcome? Where my presence makes everything feel heavy? I don't think so. Where are you staying? Sarah demanded. That's not your concern anymore, is it? You made it clear that my living situation was my problem to solve. I could hear them whispering frantically in the background, probably trying to figure out how to fix the mess they had created. Can you at least call the community center back? Danny begged. Maybe if you explain it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Danny. It was a very clear message that I received loud and clear. But what about our guests? What about Sarah's parents who flew in from Florida? What about them? They can still watch you get married. They just won't get a free meal afterward. Sarah took the phone back, sobbing now. You're being mean and spiteful.
No, sweetheart.
Mean and spiteful was telling the woman who's been taking care of you for 3 months to disappear from your family. I'm just giving you what you wanted. This will ruin everything. Everyone will think we're cheap. Well, Sarah, without someone else paying for your party, what exactly are you? I let that question hang in the air while they both tried to process what I had just said. What do you mean? Danny asked nervously. I mean, have you looked at your bank account lately? Do you know how much money you actually have versus how much you've been spending? More frantic whispering. Those groceries I've been buying every week, the utilities I've been helping with, the little extras that keep showing up, did you think they were free? Those were gifts, Sarah said weakly. Were they? Because from where I'm sitting, they look more like me supporting 2 adults who should be taking care of themselves. The silence went on so long I thought they had hung up. Finally, Danny spoke. What do you want from us, Mom? That was interesting. An hour ago, they couldn't wait to get rid of me. Now they wanted to make a deal. I want exactly what you offered me, to disappear from your family permanently. And I want to stop paying for your lives when I go. By Saturday morning, my phone had 28 missed calls and 35 text messages. I ignored them all while enjoying continental breakfast at the hotel and reading a book like a normal person. The wedding was supposed to be at 2 p.m. At 9 a.m., there was a knock on my hotel room door. Through the peephole, I saw Danny in his wrinkled dress shirt, looking like he hadn't slept at all. Mom, please, we need to talk. I opened the door, but didn't let him in. Shouldn't you be getting ready for your wedding? That's what I need to talk about. Sarah is having a complete meltdown. She's locked herself in the bathroom and won't come out. Her parents are talking about going back to Florida. The whole thing is falling apart. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope everything works out. Works out? Mom, you destroyed our wedding day. No, son. I stopped paying for your wedding day. There's a big difference. He pushed past me into the room, and I let him because sometimes people need to dig their own holes deeper. This is insane. Over what? A comment about the spare room?
Sit down, Danny.
Something in my voice made him obey immediately. I stayed standing, looking down at my 35-year-old son who was finally learning that actions have consequences. This isn't about the spare room. This is about respect. This is about kindness. This is about how you treat people who love you. We've always been good to you. Have you? When was the last time you asked about my day? When was the last time you thanked me for anything I do around your house? When was the last time you treated me like your mother instead of your unpaid housekeeper? He started to speak, then stopped. I waited. The silence was uncomfortable, which was exactly what I wanted. When was the last time you said you loved me without needing something first? When was the last time you included me in a plan because you wanted my company, not my help? That's not fair. Isn't it, Danny? In the past 3 months, how much money have I spent on your household? I don't know, maybe a few $100s for groceries and stuff. Try $2,000. His face went completely white. $2,000 in groceries, utility bills, gas money, and little emergencies that kept coming up. Plus the $1,500 I spent on your wedding reception. We were going to pay you back eventually. Were you? Because Sarah just bought a new purse that costs more than I spend on groceries in a month. And you just got those expensive golf clubs. Neither of you has mentioned paying me back, even once. He put his head in his hands. What do you want me to say, Mom? I want you to understand that I'm not your personal bank account. I want you to understand that being family doesn't mean I have to accept being treated badly. So, you're punishing us by ruining the most important day of our lives? The way he said punishing told me everything I needed to know about how he saw the situation.
No, Danny.
I'm protecting myself by stopping a pattern that was making me miserable. Making you miserable? That's dramatic.
Is it?
You moved me into your spare room and immediately started treating me like hired help. You let your girlfriend talk to me like I'm nothing. You take my money and my work and never say thank you. How exactly should that make me feel? I sat down across from him, so he had to look at me. Yesterday, Sarah told me the best gift I could give your family was to disappear permanently. And you agreed with her. After everything I've done for you, you agreed that I should disappear. She didn't really mean forever. Yes, she did. And so did you. And you know what? You're going to get exactly what you asked for. He looked up sharply. What does that mean? I smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. It means you need to figure out how to pay your own bills from now on. It means you need to learn how to plan your own events and solve your own problems. And it means you need to find somewhere else to live. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the lease agreement you never bothered to read when you moved into that apartment. The color drained from his face completely. The lease that has my name on it as the primary renter because your credit wasn't good enough on its own. You can't kick us out of our own home. It's not your home, Danny. It's my apartment that I've been letting you live in while paying most of the bills. He stared at me like I had just told him the earth was flat. That's impossible. We pay rent. You pay half the rent. I pay the other half, plus the security deposit, plus the utilities you keep forgetting about. I pulled out my phone and showed him my banking app. Would you like to see the automatic payments that come out of my account every month? But you said we could live there. I said you could stay temporarily, while you got on your feet. That was 8 months ago. How are those feet doing? The silence stretched on and on. Finally, he spoke. Are you really going to make us move? I'm really going to stop paying for you to live somewhere you can't afford. Where are we supposed to go? I don't know, Danny. Maybe you can figure it out the same way other adults do when they need housing. He pulled out his phone. I need to call Sarah. We need to figure out what to do about today. Go ahead. But Danny, when you talk to your wife about our new arrangement, make sure she understands something. He looked up from his phone. I'm not the same woman who packed her bags last night. That woman was trying to keep everyone happy no matter how badly they treated her. This woman is done being taken advantage of. You're really going to force us out on our wedding day? I'm going to give you 30 days to find a place you can actually afford. What you do with that information is up to you. He left without another word, probably to deliver the worst news of Sarah's life on what was supposed to be the happiest day. 30 minutes later, my phone rang. Ruth. Sarah's voice was barely human through her crying. We need to talk.
No, sweetie.
We really don't. You made it very clear yesterday that talking to me wasn't something you wanted to do. I was wrong. I was stressed and scared, and I said things I didn't mean. You weren't wrong about what you wanted. You just didn't understand what it would cost you. What do you mean? I mean that telling someone to disappear from your family has consequences. Real consequences that can't be fixed with tears. But we can fix this. I'll apologize to everyone. I'll tell them it was my fault. Apologize for what? For showing everyone who you really are when you don't need something from them. More crying. The kind of desperate sobbing that might have made me feel guilty 3 months ago. Now it just sounded like someone finally facing reality. Ruth, please. I'll do anything. I'll pay you back for everything. Pay me back with what money? You don't have a job. You've never had a job in the 2 years I've known you. I'll get a job. I'll work full-time. That's a great idea. You should definitely do that. But it doesn't change what happened yesterday. What if we promise to treat you better? What if we make you feel like real family? I almost laughed. Sarah, honey, real family doesn't need to promise to treat each other with basic respect. Real family just does it automatically. But you're Danny's mother. You're supposed to love us no matter what. I do love Danny. That's exactly why I'm teaching him this lesson. What lesson? The lesson that love doesn't mean someone will let you walk all over them forever. The lesson that family isn't a free pass to be cruel. The lesson that actions have consequences even when you don't want them to. The silence that followed was the sound of a spoiled person finally understanding that the world doesn't revolve around them. By 4 p.m., they had called 12 more times. I answered exactly 0 of them. Instead, I was sitting in the hotel restaurant having a nice lunch and watching the local news. There was a story about a wedding disaster at St. Mary's Church where the bride had a breakdown and the reception was mysteriously canceled. The reporter didn't mention names, but the footage of Sarah crying in her wedding dress on the church steps was pretty obvious. "Excuse me, aren't you Ruth Johnson?" I looked up to see a woman about my age with silver hair and worried eyes. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. "I'm sorry, do we know each other?" "Linda Parker, Sarah's mother." "May I sit down?" This was going to be interesting. Linda sat down with the careful movements of someone who had spent the day dealing with a crisis. "I wanted to thank you." That definitely wasn't what I had expected. "Thank me for ruining your daughter's wedding?" "Thank me for finally showing my daughter who she really is." Linda gestured to the waitress and ordered coffee. I waited, curious about where this conversation was going. I've been worried about Sarah for years. The way she treats service workers, the way she expects everyone to cater to her needs, the complete lack of gratitude for anything anyone does for her. Her coffee arrived, and she stirred it slowly. I kept hoping marriage would help her grow up. And now I've seen how she treats the woman who opened her home and her wallet to help them. And I'm horrified. Linda looked tired and sad. "Sarah called me crying, begging me to loan them money to get an apartment and pay you back." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that maybe it's time she learned to solve her own problems." This was unexpected. That must have been hard. It was the right thing to do. "Ruth, I've been enabling Sarah's selfishness for 28 years. Every tantrum was rewarded, every consequence was softened, every failure was someone else's fault." She sipped her coffee thoughtfully. "Watching her treat you the way she did yesterday, I realized I created that monster." "You didn't create anything, Linda. You just didn't teach her that actions have consequences." Neither did her father. We gave her everything she wanted and never required anything in return. Linda reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Sarah asked me to give you this. It's a letter begging you to forgive her and come back." I looked at the letter but didn't take it. "What do you think I should do?" "I think you should let her figure out how to fix her own mess. For the first time in her life." Linda put the letter back in her purse. "My daughter is 28 years old, and she's never had to face the consequences of treating people badly. Maybe it's time." After Linda left, I sat alone thinking about consequences and second chances. The truth was, I wasn't sure what I wanted to happen next. Part of me wanted Danny and Sarah to learn from this experience and become better people. Part of me wanted them to struggle until they understood what I had sacrificed for them. And part of me, the part that remembered being a mother first, just wanted my son to be happy, even if he didn't deserve it right now. My phone buzzed with a text message from Danny. "Mom, we found a small apartment we can afford. Can we please talk before you make this permanent?" I stared at the message for a long time. They were trying, which was more than they had done in months. I texted back, "We can talk, but not at the apartment. And not until Sarah apologizes to everyone whose day she ruined with her behavior." His response came immediately. "She's ready to do whatever it takes to make this right. We'll see about that." The next morning, I met them at a coffee shop downtown. Sarah looked terrible. Puffy eyes, no makeup, wearing a wrinkled t-shirt instead of her usual designer clothes. Danny looked exhausted and worried. They sat across from me like children who had been called to the principal's office. Before anyone says anything, I started, "I want you both to understand something. I'm not here to be convinced or manipulated or guilt-tripped into going back to the way things were." Sarah nodded quickly. "I understand. Ruth, I owe you the biggest apology of my life. I'm listening. She took a shaky breath. I was horrible to you. Not just yesterday, but for months. I treated you like a servant in your own home. I took your money and your kindness and never said thank you. I made you feel unwelcome in a place where you were paying the bills. Tears started running down her face, but she kept talking. And then, when I was stressed about the wedding, instead of being grateful for everything you were doing, I told you to disappear from our family. That was cruel and wrong, and I'm ashamed of myself. I watched her carefully. This felt different from her usual dramatics. More honest. Less performed. What changed your mind? Having to explain to 150 people why there was no reception. Having to tell my family that I drove away the person who was making our wedding possible. Having to look at myself in the mirror and admit what kind of person I've become. She wiped her eyes with a napkin. And realizing that in 28 years, I've never had to take care of myself. Never had to budget or save or sacrifice for anything. You were teaching me what it feels like to be responsible for my own life. Danny leaned forward. Mom, we know we messed up. We know we took you for granted. What are you going to do differently?
I asked.
They looked at each other, and I could see they had been talking about this. Sarah got a job, Danny said. At the library downtown. It's not much money, but it's a start. That was surprising. And I'm going to work extra hours, Danny continued, so we can pay our own bills without help from anyone. What about the apartment? We found a one-bedroom place we can actually afford, Sarah said quietly. It's smaller and older, but we can pay for it ourselves. I sipped my coffee, thinking. These were the kinds of changes I had hoped for, but I wasn't ready to trust them yet. And how do I know this isn't just temporary? How do I know you won't go back to the old patterns once the crisis passes? You don't, Sarah said simply. You just have to watch us prove it over time. That was probably the most mature thing I had ever heard her say. I'm not asking you to trust us right away, she continued. I'm asking for a chance to show you that I can learn from this. That I can become the kind of person who deserves to be in your family. I looked at my son, who had been quiet during most of this conversation. What about you, Danny? What did you learn from all this? He shifted uncomfortably. I learned that I've been a terrible son. I let Sarah treat you badly because it was easier than standing up to her. I took your help without saying thank you. I made you feel like a burden instead of my mother. And I learned that love isn't just a feeling. It's how you treat people. It's showing up and being grateful and making someone feel valued. He looked directly at me for the first time since they sat down. I haven't made you feel valued in a long time. And I'm sorry. We sat in silence for a while. These were the words I had been waiting to hear for months, but I still wasn't sure if they meant them or if they were just saying what they thought I wanted to hear. Here's what I'm willing to offer, I finally said. You can stay in the apartment for 2 more weeks while you transition to your new place. But you pay all the bills during that time. All of them. We can do that, Danny said quickly. And I want weekly check-ins. Not about money or help, but about how you're adjusting to being independent adults. Whatever you want, Sarah agreed. And I want Sarah to personally apologize to everyone whose day was disrupted by the wedding cancellation. The community center staff, the florist, the caterer. Everyone. Sarah's face went red, but she nodded. I'll call them all today. And one more thing. They waited. I want you both to understand that this is your 1-second chance. If you fall back into old patterns, if you start taking me for granted again, if you ever treat me the way you did yesterday, we're done. Permanently. We understand, they said together. As we prepared to leave, Sarah reached across the table and touched my hand. Ruth, can I ask you something?
What?
When you were packing your suitcase that night, what were you thinking? I thought about it. I was thinking that I had spent so much time trying to make you happy that I forgot to make myself happy. I was thinking that I deserved better than being treated like an inconvenience. She nodded slowly. I never want to make anyone feel that way again. Then don't, I said simply. It's actually not that complicated. Just treat people the way you want to be treated. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment, a cozy 1-bedroom place near the library where I had started volunteering, when Sarah called with surprising news. "Ruth, I got promoted to assistant librarian." Sarah had not only kept her job, but apparently had been good at it. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. How do you feel?" "Tired," she laughed, "but proud. I never knew I was good at helping people find things." "You always were organized. You just never had to use those skills before." There was a pause. "Ruth, I owe you another thank you. A big one." "For what?" "For not letting me stay the person I was. For caring enough about Danny to teach us both what real love looks like." Through my window, I could see the small garden I had started in the courtyard. Several other residents had asked to help, and now we had vegetables growing and flowers blooming. It was the kind of community project I had always wanted to be part of. "How are things between you and Danny?" I asked. "Better than they've ever been. We actually talk now instead of just planning what to spend money on. We cook dinner together and take walks and play board games." She paused. "We're even saving money for a real honeymoon next year. One we'll pay for ourselves. I'm proud of you both." "Ruth, would you like to come over for dinner this weekend? Nothing fancy, just homemade soup and maybe some conversation that isn't about problems." I thought about it. The old Ruth would have said yes immediately, desperate to fix the relationship. The new Ruth had learned to protect her boundaries and her peace of mind. "I'd like that, but let's start with lunch at that nice cafe downtown." Baby steps. "Of course. Whatever makes you comfortable." After we hung up, I sat quietly in my apartment, feeling something I hadn't experienced in years. The satisfaction of watching someone you love grow into a better person. Not because you rescued them, but because you let them face the consequences of their choices. Sarah and Danny had learned to take care of themselves not because I had rescued them, but because I had finally stopped rescuing them. My phone buzzed with a text from Linda Parker. "Saw Sarah at the grocery store today. She was clipping coupons and checking prices." I hardly recognized her. "Thank you for not giving up on them." I smiled and texted back. "Thank you for not bailing them out when things got hard." Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is let them struggle until they find their own strength. Sometimes love means watching someone you care about face consequences instead of cushioning every fall. And sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the chance to discover who they really are when no one is there to solve their problems for them. I had spent 3 months being their safety net, catching them every time they made a poor choice or spent money they didn't have. In doing so, I had accidentally taught them that someone would always be there to fix their mistakes. When I finally pulled that safety net away, they had 2 choices: learn to fly on their own, or crash and burn. They chose to learn. Not because they wanted to, but because they had to. And maybe that lesson was worth more than all the money I had spent trying to make their lives easier. The next morning, I woke up in my own apartment, made my own breakfast, and planned my own day without worrying about anyone else's problems or needs. At 63, I was finally learning what it felt like to be valued for who I was, not what I could provide. I had joined a book club at the library, started taking painting classes at the community center, and even been asked out to dinner by a nice widower named Frank from my building. For the first time in years, I was living my own life instead of funding someone else's dreams. That afternoon, Danny called with an update. "Mom, Sarah and I wanted you to know that we paid off our credit card debt. All of it." "That's wonderful, son. How does it feel?" "Scary," he laughed. "But also really good. Like we're finally adults who can take care of ourselves." "You are adults. You always were. You just needed to start acting like it." "Mom, can I tell you something?" "Of course. I'm proud of what you did. I mean, I was angry at first, but now I understand. You saved us from becoming people we wouldn't have been able to live with." That might have been the best compliment anyone had ever given me. "You saved yourselves, Danny. I just stopped getting in the way." "Sarah wants to ask you something, but she's nervous." "Put her on." A rustling sound, then Sarah's voice, much more confident than it had been 6 months ago. "Ruth, Danny and I are planning a small ceremony to actually get married. Just us, a few close friends, and family." "That sounds lovely. We were wondering, would you be willing to walk me down the aisle? My dad can't make it, and you're the closest thing to a mother I have." I felt tears starting in my eyes, but they were good tears. Happy tears. Sarah, I would be honored. Really? Even after everything I put you through? Especially after everything you learned from it. We talked for a few more minutes about the ceremony, about her job at the library, about Danny's promotion at work. When we hung up, I realized that for the first time since I had known Sarah, our conversation had been about her life, not her problems. She had asked about my painting class, remembered that I was going to dinner with Frank, and even offered to help with my garden project. 3 weeks later, I stood next to Sarah in a simple white dress in the backyard of their small apartment building. She looked beautiful, but more than that, she looked genuinely happy. Not the frantic, desperate happiness of someone trying to create a perfect moment, but the calm happiness of someone who is content with her real life. Are you ready? I asked her as we prepared to walk toward Danny, who was waiting under a small arch decorated with flowers from my garden. I'm ready, she said, squeezing my arm. Ruth, thank you for teaching me that real love sometimes looks like tough love. Thank you for being brave enough to learn. As we walked together toward my son, I thought about the journey that had brought us to this moment. 6 months ago, Sarah had told me the greatest gift I could give their family was to disappear. Today, she was asking me to be part of the most important moment of her life. The difference wasn't that she had learned to manipulate me better. The difference was that she had learned to value relationships over conveniences, people over presents, and respect over rescuing. Danny's eyes were bright with tears as we approached. Not tears of stress or panic, but tears of joy. He looked at his bride, then at me, and mouthed thank you in a way that told me he finally understood what I had been trying to teach them. After the ceremony, as we sat around their small dining table sharing a homemade dinner that Sarah had prepared herself, I looked around at the faces of people who had learned to appreciate what they had instead of always wanting more. I have something for you both, I said, reaching into my purse. I handed them an envelope. What is it?
Danny asked.
Open it. Inside was a card with a simple message. Congratulations on learning to fly on your own. And tucked inside the card was a check. Not for thousands of dollars like the old days, but for $50. For your first grocery shopping trip as a married couple, I explained. Sarah looked at the check, then at me, and started laughing. $50 for groceries. 6 months ago, I would have been insulted by such a small gift. And now I know exactly how much food $50 will buy, and I'm grateful for every penny. Danny folded the check carefully and put it in his wallet. Mom, this means more to us than all the big checks you used to write. Why? Because this one comes with no strings attached. No guilt, no expectations, no emergency that needs solving. Just a mother celebrating her son's wedding. That was exactly right. This gift was about celebration, not rescue. About love, not obligation. As the evening wound down, and I prepared to go home to my own apartment, Sarah walked me to the door. Ruth, I know I've said this before, but I need to say it again. I'm sorry for the person I used to be. I'm sorry it took almost losing you to make me realize what kind of daughter-in-law I wanted to be. You don't need to keep apologizing, Sarah. You've shown me who you are now, and that's what matters. She hugged me, and for the first time, it felt completely genuine. No agenda, no manipulation, just affection. I love you, she said simply. I love you too, sweetheart. And I'm proud of the woman you've become. Even though it took a crisis to get me there. Especially because it took a crisis to get you there. Some of the best growth happens when we're forced out of our comfort zones. As I walked to my car, I thought about comfort zones and growth, and the difference between enabling someone and empowering them. For 3 months, I had been so focused on keeping Sarah and Danny comfortable that I had accidentally kept them from growing. When I finally stopped cushioning their mistakes and started letting them face consequences, they had discovered strengths they never knew they had. Sarah had found out she was good at working with people. Danny had learned he could budget and save money. Together, they had discovered that their relationship was stronger when it wasn't built on financial stress and outside rescue. Driving home through the quiet streets, I thought about the letter Sarah had asked her mother to deliver 6 months ago. The desperate plea for forgiveness and a return to the old patterns. At the time, I had refused to even read it, but now I was curious about what it had said. The next day, I called Linda Parker. Linda, this might sound strange, but do you still have that letter Sarah wrote me back when everything first happened? I do, actually. I kept it as a reminder of how far she's come. Would you like me to read it to you? Please. Linda's voice was gentle as she read. Dear Ruth, I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry. Please come back and forgive me. I promise I'll be better if you just give me another chance. I need you to help us figure out how to fix everything. What do you think of it now? Linda asked when she finished reading. I think it shows exactly what was wrong back then. She wanted me to come back and fix everything for them instead of learning to fix things themselves. And now she doesn't need me to fix her problems because she's learned to handle them herself. That's real growth. Linda was quiet for a moment. Ruth, can I tell you something? Watching Sarah learn to be independent and responsible has been one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed. Not because it was easy, but because it was real. She's become someone worth being proud of, I agreed. Because you cared enough about her to let her struggle until she found her own way. A year after that terrible day, when Sarah told me to disappear from their family, I was sitting in the same hotel restaurant where I had met Linda Parker for the first time. But this time, I wasn't there because of a crisis. I was there because Sarah had gotten another promotion at the library and wanted to celebrate by taking me to lunch. I still can't believe how much my life has changed, she said as we looked over our menus. Tell me about it. A year ago, I had never balanced a checkbook, never applied for a job, never cooked a real meal. I was basically a child pretending to be an adult. She paused, looking thoughtful. Now I manage the children's section at the library. Danny and I own our own car, and we're saving money for a real vacation. What's the best part? I asked. The best part is that everything I have now, I earn myself. When I go to work, I know I'm good at my job because kids ask for me specifically. When I pay our bills, I know the money came from work I did with my own hands. When Danny and I plan for the future, we're planning with our own resources, not hoping someone else will bail us out. The waitress brought our food, and Sarah thanked her by name. 6 months of working in customer service had taught her to appreciate the people who served her. Ruth, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you ever regret what you did? Making us go through all that struggle? I thought about it carefully. I regret that it took a crisis to wake you up. I regret that I enabled you for so long that you never learned to stand on your own. But do I regret forcing you to grow up? Never. Even when we were angry and scared and didn't understand why you were being so hard on us. Especially then. Sarah, if I had given in to your tears and apologies that first week, where do you think you'd be right now? She considered this. Probably still living beyond our means, still taking your help for granted, still treating you like a personal bank account. And still miserable because deep down, you would have known you weren't capable of taking care of yourself. You're right. I was miserable before, even when I was getting everything I wanted, because I knew it wasn't really mine. She took a bite of her salad, chewing thoughtfully. I understand now why you had to be so firm. If you had given us any wiggle room, we would have found a way to avoid learning the lesson. That's exactly right. Sometimes love means being willing to be the bad guy until someone learns to be their own good guy. After lunch, we walked through the downtown area where Sarah worked. She pointed out the community garden project she had joined, the coffee shop where she and Danny went for dates now that they could afford small luxuries, the bookstore where she had discovered she loved reading mystery novels. This is my life now, she said as we stopped in front of the library where she worked. It's smaller than what I used to think I wanted, but it's real. It's mine. And how does that feel? Amazing. Ruth, for the first time in my adult life, I know who I am when nobody is taking care of me. I know what I'm capable of when I have to solve my own problems. I know what I actually enjoy when I'm not just spending other people's money on whatever catches my eye. We hugged goodbye outside the library, and as I walked back to my car, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Not because I had punished Sarah and Danny for their bad behavior, but because I had loved them enough to let them discover their own strength. That evening, I was watering the plants in my apartment when Danny called. Mom, I have some news. Good news, I hope? Great news. Sarah and I just put an offer on a house. A real house that we can actually afford with our own income. I nearly dropped my watering can. Danny, that's wonderful.
Tell me about it.
It's small, just 2 bedrooms, but it has a nice yard and it's in a good neighborhood. We've been saving for a year and we finally have enough for the down payment. How does it feel to buy something with your own money? Incredible. Mom, when we walked through that house, we weren't thinking about how we could ask someone else to help us afford it. We were thinking about how we could make it our own through our own work. And Sarah? How is she handling the idea of homeownership? Danny laughed. She's already planning which room will be her home office and where she wants to plant a garden. She's become this person who plans and budgets and thinks about the future. It's amazing to watch.
She was always capable of that.
She just needed a reason to try. Mom, can I tell you something? The day you canceled our wedding reception and kicked us out of the apartment was the worst day of my life. But it was also the day that saved my marriage. That was unexpected. What do you mean? I mean that Sarah and I learned how to work together instead of just expecting someone else to solve our problems. We learned how to appreciate what we had instead of always wanting more. We learned how to respect the people who help us instead of taking them for granted.
He paused.
And I learned what kind of husband I wanted to be. Not the kind who lets his wife treat his mother badly, but the kind who protects the people he loves. I'm proud of you, son. I'm proud of us too. All of us. You for being strong enough to teach us that lesson, and Sarah and me for being smart enough to learn it. As we said goodbye, I realized that Danny was right. That terrible day a year ago hadn't just changed their financial situation, it had changed their character. 2 months later, I was standing in the living room of Sarah and Danny's new house, watching them unpack boxes and argue good-naturedly about where to put the furniture. The couch should go under the window, Sarah insisted. We'll get better light for reading. But then where will we put the TV? Danny countered. Maybe we don't need the TV to be the center of the room, Sarah replied. Maybe we can have conversations instead. I smiled, remembering when their biggest arguments used to be about which expensive restaurant to go to when they couldn't afford either one. Now they were debating furniture placement in a house they had bought with their own savings. What do you think, Ruth? They asked, turning to me for input. I think you should put the furniture wherever makes you happiest. It's your house, bought with your own money, and you get to make it exactly what you want it to be. They looked around the small living room with satisfaction. It wasn't fancy or expensive, but it was theirs. Completely and entirely theirs. Ruth, Sarah said, we want to show you something. She led me to the kitchen, where a small plaque hung next to the refrigerator. It read, "Home is where love lives, memories are made, and lessons are learned." We had it made special, she explained, to remind us every day that this house isn't just about having a place to live. It's about building a life based on the values you taught us. What values are those? That love sometimes means saying no. That family isn't about what you can get from each other, but what you can give. That respect has to be earned, not just expected. She touched the plaque gently. And that the best gifts aren't things you can buy, but lessons you can learn. As I prepared to leave their new house that day, Sarah and Danny walked me to my car. Thank you, Sarah said, for caring enough about us to let us fail until we learned to succeed. Thank you for being brave enough to learn, I replied. Not everyone would have chosen growth over comfort.
We didn't have a choice, Danny laughed.
You made sure of that. You always had a choice. You could have stayed angry and resentful. You could have refused to change and blamed me for being unreasonable. You could have found other people to enable your old patterns. But we chose to listen to what you were trying to teach us instead, Sarah added. Even when it was hard. Even when we didn't want to. That's what made all the difference. As I drove away from their little house, I thought about the journey we had all taken over the past year. From entitlement to gratitude, from dependence to independence, from taking each other for granted to genuinely appreciating one another. 6 months later, I received a call that surprised me. Ruth, this is Linda Parker. I hope you don't mind me calling. Of course not, Linda. How are you? I'm wonderful, actually. I'm calling because Sarah asked me to invite you to something special.
What's that?
She's graduating from community college next month. She's been taking night classes to get her library science degree.
I was so proud I could barely speak.
Linda, that's incredible. She's been working full-time and going to school at night for 8 months. Ruth, she's completely transformed into someone I'm proud to call my daughter.
She was always capable of that.
She just needed to believe in herself. The graduation is next Saturday at 2 p.m. Sarah specifically asked me to tell you that she wants you in the front row because you're the person who taught her that she could do hard things. I felt tears starting in my eyes. Happy tears. Proud tears. I'll be there. Ruth, can I tell you something else?
Of course.
Watching my daughter learn to work for what she wants, learn to appreciate what she has, learn to treat people with kindness and respect, it's been like watching her grow up all over again. The right way this time. She did the growing, Linda. I just stopped getting in her way. You did more than that. You showed all of us what real love looks like. The day of Sarah's graduation, I sat in the front row of the community college auditorium, wearing my best dress and holding a small bouquet of flowers from my garden. When they called Sarah's name, she walked across that stage with confidence and grace, her diploma representing not just her education but her transformation from a dependent young woman into a capable adult. After the ceremony, she found me in the crowd and hugged me tight. I did it, she whispered in my ear. You did, I agreed. And you did it all by yourself. Well, not completely by myself. I had the best teacher. What did I teach you? You taught me that I was stronger than I thought I was. You taught me that love isn't about making everything easy, but about helping someone become their best self. As the celebration continued around us, Sarah pulled me aside. Ruth, I have something to tell you. What's that, sweetheart? Danny and I have been talking, and we want to ask you something important. I waited. We're thinking about starting a family soon, and we want to know if you'd like to be involved. Not as a babysitter or a source of financial help, but as a grandmother who gets to spoil her grandchildren the right way. My heart felt like it might burst with happiness. What's the right way? The way you should have been able to spoil us. With love and attention and fun experiences, not with money and responsibility and stress. I would love that more than anything. There's one more thing, she continued. When we have children, we want them to know the story of how their parents learned to be adults. We want them to understand that sometimes the people who love you most will let you struggle so you can discover how strong you are. That sounds like a good story to tell. It is. It's a story about a grandmother who loved her family enough to teach them that actions have consequences, that respect has to be earned, and that the best gifts aren't things you can buy, but lessons you can learn. As I looked around at the graduation celebration, I saw Sarah talking animatedly with her classmates, Danny proudly taking pictures, and Linda beaming with genuine pride in her daughter's accomplishments. This was what real family looked like. Not people who took from each other, but people who helped each other grow. Not relationships based on what you could provide, but connections built on mutual respect and genuine affection. I thought back to that terrible day when Sarah had told me the greatest gift I could give their family was to disappear. At the time, her words had felt like the cruelest thing anyone had ever said to me. Now I understood that in her own confused way, she had been right. The greatest gift I could give them was to disappear from their lives as an enabler and reappear as someone who believed they were capable of more than they thought possible. A year and a half after our family crisis began, I was sitting in my favorite chair in my apartment, reading a book and enjoying a quiet evening when my phone buzzed with a text message. It was a picture from Sarah, a pregnancy test showing 2 pink lines, with a message that read, "Baby Mitchell Parker arriving this fall. We can't wait for you to meet your grandchild." I stared at the photo for a long moment, overwhelmed with joy and gratitude. This baby would be born into a family where the parents had learned to work together, to live within their means, to treat each other with respect, and to appreciate the people who loved them. This child would have parents who understood the difference between love and enablement, between helping and rescuing, between supporting someone and doing everything for them. I called Sarah immediately. "Congratulations, sweetheart. How are you feeling? Excited, nervous, grateful, and a little scared, she laughed. All at the same time. That sounds about right for new parents. Ruth, we've been talking about what kind of parents we want to be, and we keep coming back to the lessons you taught us. What lessons are those? That love sometimes means letting people struggle. That the best way to help someone is to believe they can help themselves. That family isn't about what you can do for each other, but about who you become when you're together. Those are good lessons for any relationship. We want to raise our child to be grateful, responsible, and kind. The way you tried to raise Danny and the way you ended up teaching me. You're going to be wonderful parents. We hope so. Ruth, will you help us learn how to be the kind of parents who raise children instead of just taking care of them? I would be honored. As we talked about nursery plans and baby names and all the excitement that comes with expecting a child, I realized that this conversation was completely different from any we might have had 2 years ago. Instead of asking me to solve problems or provide money, Sarah was asking me to share wisdom and experience. Instead of wanting me to make things easy, she was asking me to help them learn how to do things well. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment thinking about the journey our family had taken. From a crisis that could have destroyed our relationships permanently, to a new beginning built on respect, honesty, and genuine love. The old Ruth would have immediately started planning how to help with baby expenses, how to provide a crib and stroller, and all the things new parents need. The new Ruth was planning something different. How to be the kind of grandmother who teaches by example, who offers wisdom instead of solutions, and who loves her grandchild by helping the parents learn to be their best selves. This baby was going to be so lucky. Not because someone would buy them everything they wanted, but because someone would teach them the difference between wanting and needing, between deserving and earning, between being loved and being spoiled. 3 months later, I was sitting in the hospital waiting room with Linda Parker, both of us excited and nervous as Sarah and Danny became parents for the first time. Are you ready to be a grandmother? Linda asked me. I'm ready to be the kind of grandmother I should have been to Sarah and Danny. Someone who loves them enough to let them figure things out on their own. With guidance when they ask for it, Linda added. But only when they ask. When Danny finally came out to tell us that baby Emma had arrived safely, his face was glowing with pride and joy. But more than that, he looked confident, ready, like someone who knew he could handle the responsibility of being a father. She's perfect, he said, tears streaming down his face. And Sarah was incredible. She's already talking about how we're going to teach Emma to be strong and independent. Can we meet her? Linda asked. Of course. Sarah specifically asked for both grandmothers to come in together. As we walked down the hospital hallway towards Sarah's room, I thought about the difference between this moment and what it might have been like 2 years ago. Then I would have been worried about how they were going to afford everything a baby needs, already planning how to help financially. Now, I was simply excited to meet my granddaughter and watch her parents discover the joy and challenge of raising her together. Sarah was sitting up in bed, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in a pink blanket, looking tired but radiant. Ruth, Linda, come meet Emma. I looked down at the tiny face peeking out from the blanket and fell in love instantly. She's beautiful, sweetheart. How are you feeling? Like I can do anything, Sarah replied. Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. What's the best part so far? Knowing that Danny and I are going to figure this out together. Knowing that we have the skills we need to take care of her. Knowing that we're going to teach her to be strong and kind and grateful, just like you taught us. I kissed Sarah's forehead, then gently touched Emma's tiny hand. Welcome to the family, little one. You're going to have the most amazing parents. And the best grandmother, Sarah added. One who will teach her that love means helping people become their best selves. As I held my granddaughter for the first time, I thought about the legacy I wanted to leave her. Not money or things, but values. The understanding that love isn't about making everything easy, but about helping someone grow strong. The knowledge that family isn't about what you can get from each other, but about how you can help each other become better people. The wisdom that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the confidence that they can handle whatever life brings them. Emma opened her tiny eyes and looked at me with that serious expression newborns have, and I whispered to her, Your parents learned some important lessons before you arrived, little one. And someday, when you're old enough, they'll teach those lessons to you. 6 months later, I was babysitting Emma while Sarah and Danny went on their first date night since becoming parents. As I rocked my granddaughter to sleep, I marveled at how different this felt from caring for Sarah and Danny 2 years ago. Then, I had felt burdened, taken for granted, unappreciated. Now, I felt joyful, valued, and included in a family that had learned to balance independence with connection. Sarah and Danny still lived within their means, still handled their own problems, still treated me with respect and gratitude. But now they also included me in their lives because they wanted my company, not because they needed my help. When they came home from dinner, glowing and relaxed, Sarah sat down next to me on the couch. "Ruth, I need to tell you something. Tonight at dinner, Danny and I were talking about how grateful we are for the life we have now." "Tell me about it." "We were remembering how stressed and unhappy we used to be when we were living beyond our means, taking your help for granted, not appreciating anything we had." She looked down at Emma sleeping in my arms. "And we realized that if you hadn't been strong enough to teach us that lesson, Emma would have been born into a completely different family. Parents who didn't know how to work together, who didn't understand the value of money, who didn't appreciate the people who loved them." "But that's not what happened." "No, it's not. Because you loved us enough to let us struggle until we learned to fly." As Sarah took Emma from my arms and Danny walked me to my car, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Not because I had punished them for their bad behavior, but because I had loved them enough to believe they could become better people. The greatest gift I had given my family wasn't money or things or easy solutions to their problems. The greatest gift I had given them was the opportunity to discover their own strength, their own capabilities, their own worth. And in return, they had given me the greatest gift of all, a family built on mutual respect, genuine appreciation, and love that didn't depend on what anyone could provide for anyone else, but on who we had all become through the process of learning to love each other well. Thanks for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, please subscribe to Grandma Stories and share your own experiences in the comments below. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone you care about learn to stand on their own 2 feet.